What is going on, everybody? My name is Aaron, and welcome back to the Murders to Music podcast. I'm your host, and tonight I'm going to walk you through something I only did once in my career. It's entertaining, it's unbelievable, it's a little bit disgusting, maybe a lot, but it's not going to get too many details, so don't worry. And at the end, there's a twist that you are absolutely not going to believe. So, let me jump right into that. So here we go. It's 2014. Patrol officers have been dealing with an ongoing domestic violence situation at an apartment just on the outskirts of town. And when I say outskirts of town, I don't mean that it's in a rural area. I mean that our city backs right up against Portland, Oregon. And it's right on that border. One street over, and this would have been a Portland case, but it happened to fall on our side of the fence, so we got it. And when I say an ongoing domestic violence situation, I mean that there is a male homosexual couple that is living in an apartment, and over a period of weeks, there's been ongoing domestic violence complaints. But patrol has not been able to substantiate any crimes, so therefore no arrests have been made. But you'll find in life that sometimes there is a squeaky wheel, and sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease and gets the attention. And that's what happened in this case. So in this relationship, there was one person who kept reporting that they were the victim of this domestic violence. And I want to take domestic violence very seriously. It is an issue that ultimately, oftentimes, will lead to injury or death. So this is something that we investigate and we take very, very serious. Well, because patrol, in their limited resources on the street, they're not able to really dig into the weeds and get down to really what is going on and what is the history there. What is the history of domestic violence? If this goes unchecked, what is the likelihood of future injury or occurrence? And who is the primary physical aggressor, meaning who is the one that historically has started this? Just because you walk into a domestic violence situation and the husband has been cracked in the face with a glass ashtray and has got a broken nose, sometimes on the surface you would think you arrest the woman. However, not necessarily the case. You have to ask the questions. And when you ask, you find out that the husband has been beating up the wife for years. It's well documented. The injuries the female has had has been documented over the years, and people have witnessed this. Well, tonight, she wasn't going to take it anymore. And when he came at her, although he didn't hit her, she knew what was coming. So she reached back, grabbed the first thing she could find, and smacked him in the face with an ashtray to stop the fight and to stop her from getting beat up one more time. You see, we would hope that those questions would get asked to find out the primary physical aggressor, the history of abuse, and what is the likelihood of future assault or injury if this goes unchecked. But sometimes we can't ask all those questions at a patrol level. Maybe people don't want to talk to us. Maybe it's too hectic or chaotic of a situation. Whatever the circumstances are, sometimes it takes a little bit further probing. And that is where detectives come in. So in this case, we had this ongoing domestic violence between this homosexual male couple. One of the parties, who we'll call Adam is the person that is the squeaky wheel. He's the one that always wants something done, but the police can never really find enough to make an arrest or take an enforcement action. So in that case, we'll oftentimes split people up, make them go to separate houses, make one person leave for the night, try to resolve that situation when we don't have the probable cause to make an arrest. Well, Adam became such a squeaky wheel that this got sent to detectives for further probing and digging into the situation. Adam came into the office, and I happened to be available, so I took the call. And the situation was we wanted to look into this history of domestic violence, and we wanted to find out if there was really something under the surface that is a criminal offense. Who is doing what? Who is the primary physical aggressor? Have there been injuries? Is there any documentation on cell phones that we couldn't talk about during the initial call? These are all things that I wanted to look into. So I went out to the lobby and I got Adam. And I brought Adam back to our interview room. Adam comes in at a stature of about 5'11". He's about 260 pounds. He's a stocky guy, barrel-chested, not terribly fat, but just barrel-chested, just a bigger guy. He's got dark hair. I remember being slicked back. He had on a gray army jacket, like the windbreaker they run in, that has that black V down the front and a black V down the back. It said Army on it. You know, and I still don't think to this day Adam was ever in the Army, but he was wearing this jacket. Underneath the jacket, he had on a white T-shirt. Underneath that white T-shirt, I could see a ton of chest hair coming up from his neck. His chest hair was long and over the top of his shirt. Adam was dark complected, maybe Italian, something like that. His arms were very, very hairy. When he took his jacket off, I remember seeing that. He was wearing blue jeans, and I remember thinking the blue jeans, you know, some people shouldn't wear tight, skinny jeans. And that's what Adam had on that day, was tight blue jeans. So he comes in, he sits down, I look across the table at him, I see his beady eyes, I see his little mustache, almost a Hitler mustache, if you will, maybe a little bit wider. And he started talking to me, and immediately he had a whiny voice, and I'm putting the pieces of the puzzle together. When Adam walked in, he was kind of slouchy when he walked. He was lazy. Shoulders were hunched over, defeated, looked, just screamed like he's a victim in life. And he came down, sat down at the table, and had that whiny voice going. And I asked him, tell me the story, my friend. What is going on? So he says, hey, you know, he says, I'm a homosexual, and I meet guys online, and I let them come back to my house, and, you know, sometimes they move in with me. And I've had a couple of boyfriends over the years, but this one that I'm currently with, he lives with me, and he's a little bit younger. He's 18, and at this time, Adam was 34. He's like, this guy's 18 years old, and man, he beats me up, and he sodomizes me, and he does things to me that I don't want, and, you know, the police keep coming, but nobody's making an arrest, and I just need you to do something. I need you to arrest him because he's done really bad things to me. And I'm like, all right, man. I said, well, I'm here to listen, so let's talk. Tell me what happens. So Adam goes through the history of domestic violence calls where the police have come and what he's told the police. And frankly, what he told the police when they came, according to his recollection, didn't meet a criminal offense. So the police couldn't make an arrest. You know, it was more hurt feelings versus hurt body. So he tells me the story about the police coming, and first he wants the police to be held accountable for not making a mandatory arrest. Well, I'm like, that's not going to happen because there was no crime occurred, and they can't just arrest a person because you get your feelings hurt. But let's talk about what happened and give me the details. You said he's sodomized you. Immediately, my ears perk up because I know that's a criminal offense. So let's talk a little bit about that. So Adam goes on to tell me that he and this other guy have been in a relationship for a period of time, a month, 2 months, whatever it is. And he says that this other guy likes to sodomize him. And before I go any further, I'm not getting into tons of detail, so don't shut this off. But he likes to sodomize him with a golf club handle, like the handle of a golf club that you would hold on to when you swing the golf club. And I'm like, all right, tell me more. And he says, you know, sometimes I will be like leaning over the couch watching television, and he'll come up behind me and he just shoves it right in, and it goes right inside me. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, well, are you naked leaning over the couch? He says, no, I'm wearing my blue jeans. And immediately at that point, like the ounce of common sense that I have tells me that blue jeans, he's not going to be able to penetrate inside through a pair of blue jeans. So at this point, I put on my questioning hat and I try to determine what exactly we have going on here. So Adam goes on to tell me that he's always clothed when anything happens, and this guy comes up and takes this golf club and thinks it's funny and puts it right in his butt. And so I listen to him and I have to question, right at this point, he's coming in as a victim. So I'm not going to confront him right away with, hold on a second, you're wearing blue jeans. How is this even happening? Your story's not making any sense. I want to hear what he has to say. So we go through this, and Adam continues to tell me about what happens. He says there's a time where it happened when I was leaning on the back of the couch. At one time, I was laying on the bed, fully clothed, and my legs were in like a figure 4 position. I was face down, just sleeping, and he came into my room and, did this again to me. And, sometimes he will hit me with, we'll have a pillow fight, and he hits me too hard with the pillow fight, and he needs to be arrested for that, and all this stuff. So I'm like, well, tell me about the other sodomies. And he's like, well, that's it. I mean, he's done it several times with the golf club, fully clothed, in jeans, and that's, what it is. That's what he does. And I'm like, all right. So I finished taking his story, and I'm like, well, Adam, I need you to show me exactly what is going on. What position are you in when he is doing this sodomization? And I did this because I know that I'm being recorded, and I want the camera to see the audacity that he's trying to report. And I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying there's a high probability that what he's telling me might not be true. So Adam stands up, and he leans over the interview table there, and he shows me how his butt was sticking out, and he tells me, okay, well, it's happening like this. And then he, laid down on the floor, and he showed me the figure 4 position, and he's like, okay, and it happened when I was like this. And one time I was rolled over to see if I could touch my knees to my shoulders, but I'm fully clothed, and then he did it again, and every time it goes right in. And I'm like, all right, gotcha. So I hear his story. He gives me all the names of the people that I need to interview, and the witnesses, and the quote unquote bad guy in this. So I go and I send him home, and I go and I interview the other people. I interview the suspect in this, and I'll use that term loosely, but I interview the suspect in this, and the suspect in this, he acknowledges that, yeah, he's living with him. Yeah, there's a golf club. I've never done that. In fact, detective, that wouldn't even work. How would I be able to do that through his jeans? And I'm like, that's a great question. So we go through this whole thing, and you can tell when you're talking to people if they are like, we call it MSU, making shit up, or if they are being honest and truthful. And if they're being honest and truthful, oftentimes it just makes sense, and they can give you things that you can verify their story, or just common sense or anecdotal information. Blue jeans are denim, and there's no way we're going to penetrate this and push fabric inside. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And remember I said he was wearing skinny jeans? His jeans are tight. I remember asking Adam, I'm like, well, what jeans were you wearing? He's like, well, I was wearing these. I'm wearing the same ones I'm wearing today. I brought them so you could see them. And looking at that, there's no way that there's no loose fabric, let's just say that, on his ass. So that I talked to the other people involved in this, and ultimately I asked Adam to come back in to the police department, and I want to interview him, but I also want him to bring the golf club so I can see the golf club. You can't assume that the golf club is the golf club that you're seeing in your head right now, with that rubber-coated handle and, the nice head on one end, and you're going to go out and play golf with it. Maybe this golf club has been stripped down of its handle. Maybe it's just a raw metal shaft. I don't know. So let's have him bring it in. Maybe it's something that I'm not picturing in my head. So Adam came in, and Adam was wearing the same jeans again that he was wearing the first time, which are the jeans that he says this occurred in. Now, I'm noticing on these jeans that I don't see a series of holes in the bottom area. So just note that away. So I talked to Adam, and Adam shows me this golf club. And this golf club is probably what you've been picturing. It's a full-size golf club with a green and black rubber, plastic, whatever coated handle. the handle, as it gets out towards the end of the handle, the furthest end, it gets bigger and heavier and thicker in diameter. So it tapers down towards the head and it's broader up towards where your hands are and your wrists are. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, I just don't get it. So he brings it in. He's like, this is it. This is the golf club. And I'm like, all right. I said, well, let's talk about this, Adam. I said, so I go back through his series of events that he told me. First, you're bending over the couch, minding your own business, watching television, because that seems natural position to lean over the couch. And you got these jeans on that you're wearing today. Yep, these same jeans. Okay. And he comes up behind you and he shoves this golf club right inside. Oh, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Okay. Adam, how did that happen? Because your jeans are tight and there's no way that, because I'm having a hard time figuring out how this golf club is going to be able to push the jeans that are tight inside. So he's like, well, it just happened. I mean, I don't know how it happened. It just happened. I was on the receiving end of this and it hurt. And I'm like, okay. I said, so how far? I said, did it go inside? Yeah. How far? Oh, an inch or two. It went an inch or two inside you, and it pushed fabric up inside. Oh, yeah, totally. Okay. Well, let's talk about the time on the figure 4. We go through the same thing. It's the same story. And he's like, he said, one time it went through and it broke the pants, but I repaired the pants, but it went inside, and it was just every time it's like, whoop, right. I said, did he ever miss? He's like, no, he never missed. Like every time it went right where it was supposed to go and where he was intending, it went right inside. I'm like, all right. I said, well, Adam, here's the deal. I said, I don't necessarily believe your story because common sense tells me that there's no way you're going to be able to push this golf club through the fabric and actually penetrate inside of you. I said, and penetration is the definition of sodomy. I said, so, he might have hit you on the butt. Did he hit you on the butt with it? Or, did he actually penetrate? Because maybe you don't understand the term sodomy. He's like, no, man. He said, it went inside. I'm like, all right. I said, well, Adam, there's no way that occurred because these jeans haven't been repaired. The coefficient of friction alone. Oh, before we get to coefficient of friction, I remember asking him. I said, hey, I noticed you're really hairy. He's like, oh, yeah, really hairy. I'm like, all right. I said, you got a lot of hair on your arms, a lot of hair on your chest. I said, is your back hairy? My back's super hairy. I'm like, all right. Is your whole body hairy? My whole body's hairy. I said, what about your butt? Oh, yeah, my butt's really hairy. I said, do you ever shave down there, Adam? And he's like, what? I said, do you ever shave, manscape the valley there? He's like, well, I did it once, but, my boyfriend thought it was weird. And I'm like, this is what he thought was weird? Anyway, so I'm like, all right, no judging. So I said, so you don't shave? Nope. I said, were you shaved or any of these times? Nope. You're super hairy? Yep. I said, rate your hairiness on your butt on a scale of 1 to 10. I said, and let's say your chest is a 10. Oh, it was a 10. My butt's a 10. I'm like, all right, cool. At least I know what I'm working with. So then I go into it. I'm like, Adam, look, the coefficient of friction alone between the rubber handle and the hairy butt, there's no way that even if it did break the pants, it would penetrate. I said, and Adam, anal sex between two consenting adults is a challenge as it is. So, the fact that he would be able to hit his target every single time is almost unbelievable to me. I said, and plus, if he did, he would have to have the precision aim of an Army sniper in order to get it there every time. I said, so for these reasons, I don't believe what you're telling me. And then he starts to backpedal a little bit. But he's like, it totally went. And I said, Adam, here's what I'm going to do. I said, if we take this to trial, I said, I'm going to get a fake butt and I'm going to get a golf club and I'm going to have every member of that jury try just one time to get it where it needs to go, to pin the tail on the donkey. And I said, I got a tough time believing that any of them are going to be able to get it. I said, so the fact that this kid did it over and over and over again, and you've got a kid that's 18 years old and weighs 110 pounds versus a man that weighs 260 at 34 years old, you couldn't defend yourself against this. I said, either this is some form of play that you're into, or you're making your shit up. I said, so which one is it? He's like, well, he didn't really go inside of me. It just kind of hit me with it, and it hurt my feelings. And, so that's what I did. But there was never any marks, never any bruises, never broke the skin, never penetrated anything, blah, 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 blah. So he goes to this whole thing. So he's made this whole thing up. I'm like, well, Adam, why did you do this, man? And he's like, well, he said, I just want him to be held responsible. And I knew that if I make up something, elaborate, then he would go to jail for it because the police have come so many times. They haven't arrested him. I just think he needs to be arrested. And I'm like, all right. I said, well, Adam, what else is going on? I said, is there anything else going on in your relationship? He's like, well, he owes me money because he hasn't been paying the bills. I'm like, here we go. Now we're getting to the crux of this matter. There's some money involved. He's like, he owes me back rent and he won't pay, and I've tried to kick him out, but he won't leave. So I really just need him to go, and so on and so forth. I'm like, well, Adam, I said, that really sucks, man. I said, so let me make sure I got this right. He owes you money, back rent, he won't leave, and you are wanting him to go, but he won't actually leave. We've reported these domestic violence situations, but the police won't make an arrest because they're telling you there's no criminal offense. Is that correct? He's like, yeah. I said, did you ever tell the police about the sodomy story? Well, no, I didn't. Did you ever tell him about a golf club and a hitting? No, I didn't tell him that either. I said, when did you come up with this golf club story? He's like, well, I was trying to figure out what to do, and I made it up, and I wanted to come in and tell you guys. I'm like, all right. I said, well, do you see all the flaws in your story? He's like, I totally get it now that I look at it. I'm like, all right, here's the deal. You're under arrest. So he goes to jail for filing a false report. I don't mind taking people who waste my time or our time and degrade the name of a domestic violence victim. I don't mind taking them to jail because he was trying to use me as his cannon fodder and as his leverage to get rent and to get this guy out of his house. But it's weird that it didn't work out for him. One of the things that I did between the first and the second interview with Adam is I had to look into who his friends were. I had to look into who this 18-year-old kid was. And I went on to, I've got a fake profile for Facebook profile that I use for my law enforcement work. The name on the profile was Darren Wall. The picture is about of a 13-year-old boy, some nondescript blonde-haired boy, 13 years old kid. So during the investigation, one of the things that I did is I had to investigate and figure out who the players were that Adam was dealing with. And by doing that, I interviewed the 18-year-old kid. I went on to Facebook. You see, I've got a profile that I use for my criminal investigations. The profile is a kid named Darren Wall. It's a made-up name. It was my undercover name when I worked undercover in Alaska. The picture is of a nondescript 13-year-old boy with blonde hair. And when I went into Facebook, I wanted to befriend Adam because I needed to find out who his contacts were and if he had other kids in there. Now, Adam told me during the interview that he liked boys between about 17 and 19 years old, and he knew 17 might be pushing it and might be illegal, but he still likes those kind of young boys. So that's already pointing me in the direction of maybe a criminal offense for sexual abuse of a minor. So I went on, and on Adam, when you search Adam and his last name on Facebook, there are several Adams with his last name, but some of them didn't have pictures. So I befriended them all, sent them all a friend request. The only one that responded was my Adam. So this is during the investigative process, and this is before that second interview. This is before Adam goes off to jail. So now Adam is in jail. We have a connection via Facebook because he befriended my 13-year-old little boy. And I'm laying in bed one night with my wife. And it's about 11 o'clock at night, 11:30 at night. And my phone goes off. Bing. I'm like, that's weird. So I grab my phone, take a look at it, and it's a message from Adam to me. And I'm like, man, he probably figured out this is a fake account. So I go to the message and I read it, and it's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. Going to bed. And he's like, oh, do you want to chat? And I'm like, well, I got to get up for school in the morning, so I can't really stay up late. He's like, that's okay. He said, I won't take much of your time. He said, it's really good to meet you. Why did you friend request me? And I said, oh, I'm trying to find my friend Adam that I play, video games with, that I go to school with. Is this him? He's like, no, this isn't him. My name is Adam, and I don't go to school, but I like to play video games. And I'm like, well, how old are you? He's like, I'm 34, whatever it was, 35. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm only 13. I'll talk to you later. He's like, no, let's talk now. Let's talk about video games. He said, in fact, I teach karate, and I can talk to you about karate and all kinds of stuff. So Adam is starting a conversation with me thinking I'm a 13-year-old boy. And I'm like, hey, I've seen this on To Catch a Predator. I know what's about to happen here. So as I'm talking, Adam immediately shifts the conversation in a sexual manner. So I teach karate. I like to roll around and fight with people. Do you ever roll around with guys? Do you ever like to roll? I've never done it. Well, would you ever do that? How would you feel getting that close to another guy's stuff? Well, I mean, if we're just doing karate, I guess it'd be okay. Before you know it, Adam is telling this 13-year-old all the stuff that he wants to do to him. Every explicit sexual act that you can imagine, Adam is telling me that he wants to do. He's telling me how he wants to sneak over to my grandma's house where I told him I'm staying because my parents are out of town, and he wants to sneak me out of the bedroom window. He wants to meet me the next day at the park so we can have sex. He wants to buy me and give me and get me whatever it is that I want because he's just a nice guy. It's called grooming. He wants all of these things, and I'm continuing to talk back to him. Now, I got to be very careful during these conversations that I'm not bringing up sex, that I'm not talking about the nasty stuff with him. He says, have you ever done, X, Y, or Z? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm only 13. I haven't done anything. He's like, well, would you do X with me if I were to make it taste good? And I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know if there's some way to. He's like, well, I could, flavored condoms is a way to do it. And I'm like, well, I don't even know what that is. So we go back and forth. So then we have this very detailed conversation, and we end the conversation with he was going to reach out to me the following day. So the next day I go to work, and I have one of our admin assistants type up and do a transcription on my entire conversation with him, knowing that he's already solicited me for sexual activity, believing I'm a 13-year-old boy. We already have a criminal offense. So as she writes it up, now this lady has been an admin assistant for the police department for 25 years at this point. And I walked into the office that day after she got through it, and she kind of stopped and she pulled her glasses down and she's like, Aaron, this is a dirty conversation. I'm like, oh, I know it is. She's like, you're a dirty man. I'm like, I know. So I end up getting the transcript. Adam hits me up. I blow him off, and I'm trying to set up something to meet him the next day. So that night, we have more conversation. I bring it in. It's the same type of conversation, all the things he wants to do, how he wants to do it, how he's going to help me sneak away. I transcribe that the next morning. The next morning comes, he reaches out. He's like, can we meet today? And I'm like, all right. So I've got an arrest team that's ready for me, and we're going to go out and we're going to meet. So we're going to meet at a McDonald's in the heart of our city is the plan. So Adam is texting with me, and we've got an arrest team, got one other guy inside with me. We got a surveillance team outside, and we're going to meet at this McDonald's. So as we are getting ready for the meet, Adam is texting me, I'm 3 minutes out. I'm 2 minutes out. I'm a minute 30 seconds out. I'm 15 seconds out. I'm pulling in the parking lot. I'm driving a Pontiac, a green Pontiac Firebird or a Grand Am. I'm driving a green Pontiac Grand Am, and we're like, surveillance team. Yep, got a green Pontiac Grand Am pulling in the parking lot now. It's circling the building, and it's hitting the drive-thru. He says, I'm in the drive-thru. Come out the drive-thru door and meet me. I'm like, no. I said, come inside and meet me. I'm in the bathroom, blah, blah. So Adam goes through the drive-thru, ends up getting a soda. He circles around, parks at the front, and walks in the building. So Adam is there. I'm waiting in the bathroom where I told him to meet me. Another detective is sitting in the lobby, and Adam doesn't know that detective. But as Adam walks in, all good plans go to hell in a handbasket sometimes. There's another teenage boy sitting at a table, and Adam goes up and starts talking to him. Are you Darren? And the other detective in the lobby sees what's going on, calls me out of the bathroom, and I come out. And as soon as Adam sees me, his eyes get huge. It was clear that his world was turning into a McFlurry of emotions. Didn't know what to do. Didn't know how to respond. And he's like, holy crap, what are you doing here? And I said, Adam, I'm Darren, and you're under arrest. So I arrest him. I bring him back to the office. We have his car sitting there, which we'll process later. So I bring him back to the office and secure his vehicle. and interview him. And ultimately, he admits and acknowledges all of the conversation that we had. I show him first he denies it, but then I show him the transcriptions, his conversation, my conversation. I show him my Facebook profile. He gets it. And then he starts telling me, well, you know what? I was just doing this to warn you of all the dangers of communicating with people online. And I'm like, you're full of shit. So we go through this whole thing. Ultimately, he acknowledges having the sexual conversation. He acknowledges talking to me, but denies that he was actually going to have sex. And I said, well, what about the action figure, the flavored condoms, and the alcohol? I said, do you have that on you? He said, no, I don't. I said, do you have it in your car? Am I going to find it? Not at all. Nope, I don't. I didn't bring any of that. I'm like, okay. So we sent him off to jail and then serve a search warrant on his car. And as luck would have it, guess what we found? Flavored condoms, brand new action figures still in the blister pack wrapping from Walmart, and some alcohol, some like Zimas or wine coolers or something. I can't even remember what that was. So he was totally there to have a sexual encounter with a 13 or 14-year-old boy, and that's what he came prepared for. So he went to jail for it. He spent about 3 years in jail, something like that. And then when he got out of jail, he got a hold of me and he tried to accuse me of stealing $20 out of his wallet or something. So there was an investigation on that, and obviously that didn't happen and life moved on. But then it was he got out of jail in 2018. In 2019, he was on the news again. Washington County found him, and he was being indicted for 19 charges of child sexual abuse and solicitation of a minor using online apps, which is really, really weird because that's the same thing he did with me. So he's back in jail, and Washington County says he's got pending charges for the same thing in Washington County, Clark County, Clackamas County, Multnomah County. So this guy is just a bad dude. So he goes off to jail, and I think he's still in jail for all of his charges. And this is now 2024. So I think he's still in jail. So that is it. When I was doing a little bit of research on him to find out where he was in his update, remember I said how he kind of screamed, "I'm a victim in life"? Well, I found a video of him online where Channel 2 News did a special where he got scammed out of $1,000 using Craigslist. So Adam gets on the television and he says, I met this guy on, whatever his name was, on Craigslist personals, and he wanted me to cash a check for him, and the check was for $300, and I cashed it, but then it bounced, and he got the money, so he scammed me over, and I can't believe he did this to me, and he's done this to other people, and he's whiny. And then they show a picture of the dude. Same profile as his other victims. Skinny, Filipino, male, appears homosexual, sticking his tongue out at the camera, like, just sticking his tongue out, all right? Is what it is. You can picture it however you want. It was a stiff tongue. It was a very stiff tongue with a very pointy tip, sticking it out at the camera. The lips were puckered around it. You get the picture. And I'm like, I totally get what happened. This is the same thing that happened to me. He's met this young kid. He's having sex with him, messing around with him. There's money involved. And now he's filing another report that he got scammed. Anyway, that is the only time in my career that I did a To Catch a Predator type thing, and it really just fell into my lap. It couldn't have happened to a better guy. He needed to get off the street, and that is one of the benefits of law enforcement, is taking those people off the street. Rule number 6 of law enforcement is try to find something entertaining in your job. This was an entertaining case for me. While I knew that he wasn't going to hurt me because I'm not a child victim, I knew what his intent was. It was entertaining to play with him. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. It was entertaining to work this case and ultimately find the prosecution very, very successful. So some of these episodes are educational, some are entertaining, some provide value, and some are just stories. And this was an entertaining story. I just wanted to tell you about it. I wanted to tell you about the only time that I ever worked that in my entire career. And Adam is off the street and probably not communicating with your kids right now on Facebook. So thank you guys so much. Over the next few weeks, I have several interviews lined up. I'm excited. Other law enforcement officers. I've got people not in law enforcement, cancer survivors, a lot of great things, and a lot of great stories coming at you. So, you guys, stay healthy, stay wise, love each other, and we'll see you guys on the next Murders to Music podcast.